when I was in senior care, I was like really honestly heartbroken about the care that was being provided. And I let my voice be heard often. And I was fired often for that. But I always knew that you could do it better. No one just wants to change freaks and shower people and feed people all day. That is not exciting for caregiving, right? It's a chore. You have to do it. But when you also get to cook with them and you also get to take them on outings and paint their nails, there's some days where I will sit and look at pictures from the residents and stuff, and I will just cry. And I will just say, like, I did a really, really good thing. Like, and really changed some lives. Like, made an impact, a lasting impact on their hearts and mine. I used to get fired for my opinion, and now I get paid for it.
How would you characterize your entrepreneurial journey? Well, my guest today calls her journey brutal. Joanna LaFleur is a fiercely passionate advocate for those with dementia and their caregivers. Joanna is a truly powerful speaker and impactful trainer, sharing a transformative message, which we will learn today. Joanna, welcome to Next Level Leadership.
Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I'm really excited to get the conversation started today. Now, your passion is clearly about dementia care. Why is that?
Definitely. Well, my grandma had Alzheimer's. This happened over 20 years ago now. My grandma got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and I started working at a nursing home and just fell in love with our elders. I'll never forget this story. It was almost really this lady, Lulu, who got me in it forever because I would do music, and at the end of the music, I would always sing that song, "Good night, sweetheart. It's time to go," right? So, first time I was doing music for him, I sang that song, and here's Lulu in a wheelchair, very far into her Alzheimer's journey, couldn't really communicate a lot, did a lot of crying. All of a sudden, I sang that song, and she said, "Da da da da," and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I couldn't believe not only did she know, like, every word to every song I almost ever sang, but she knew, like, the musical notes to it, and, like, Alzheimer's could not get in front of that, and I was like, "That's amazing," and I've always really been into music. I've been doing it since I was little, and so I was like I learned about recreational therapy as in using music therapy, and I was like, "This is what I was meant to do," and I changed my major from elementary education, which is hilarious because I'm not really a kid person, but I am really an old people person, so it worked out.
Who knew?
I know, right?
I love how we find ourselves on the journey early in life where we figure out where we really want to end up. And it's often different from where we thought we were going to go.
Definitely.
So tell us about your job now, your business now. It is Memory Lane Foundation. And tell us about that. And then, just tell us about that first, and then we'll go on.
Okay. So Memory Lane Foundation was created really as a resource for families caring for someone with dementia or families with someone or not even a family member, because sometimes it's a friend, sometimes it's, someone else. So just people that are caring for someone with dementia to really provide that support, like the emotional support that people need, and then the resources people need, and then the education that people need. And so I started doing these videos on social media where I try to do like a 1 to 3 minute video on something really dementia related, something, really a quick tip that people can utilize that day. I talk about anything and everything. Nothing's off limits because we need to talk about it. And I started doing them about 18 months ago. And my first video, it took in 2 months, my first video hit 1 million views on Facebook. And it was my video that was on Alzheimer's stages 1, 2, and 3. And I was like, this is not only just like people kind of need this information, like people desperately need this information. And the comments that I get pouring in on my videos saying things like, "We would never be able to care for mom if it wasn't for you." Like we've looked everywhere for help and we couldn't find it. Now we're not alone. Like, it's like touching stuff. And I just realized that families need stuff like where they're at, when they can do it in bite-sized pieces, and they need that support. And so, now that's my sole thing is I work with families directly. I do care consultations. I talk them through the journey. I do all that. I do training for communities. I do training for like I'm doing one right now with a dementia day program. I speak at conferences about dementia. So I'm doing a couple of those coming up. So that's basically what I'm doing now. Just a lot of support in the community and with people directly caring for people with dementia.
Wow, that sounds beautiful. That it sounds like you are enjoying the process of growing your business, and it sounds like you're really hitting a need that I don't think we really knew that we needed this much because you're able to distill things down into such a simple way that people can take them and just apply them immediately. And the
Right.
beau and I just find it beautiful now that you don't have to be landlocked, if you will. Through the internet, you can reach all kinds of people,
Yeah.
not only across the United States, but worldwide.
Yeah. I have people following me from the UK, from Australia, from Africa, like from everywhere. People are following me from.
That is fantastic. Tell us about your journey into entrepreneurhood.
Yeah. So I worked in elder care for um, several years. And then I just really felt like, I did it for like 10 years. And then I just really felt like we could do better with our elders. Like I felt like, I never wanted to own a business because I'm really not a business person. I'm the least businessy person you'll ever meet. And I'm not even good with money, to be honest. But but what I am good at is like when I see something that needs to happen and when I feel strongly about something, I will do whatever it takes to get it. I call it like the bulldog method. You just hang on, you don't let go, right? It's what you have to do in entrepreneurship. um, and so I was like, I know we can do this better. I'm going to start it. I started it with literally $1,000 in the bank. I started waiting tables and I started my first company from my living room to a rented conference room for $50 a month to a closet space to a 2-room office to a 5-room office. So I like switched, throughout my journey as we grew, then we had to grow more and um it was crazy. That's why I do call it brutal because it's like, being in business, being an entrepreneur is absolutely there's so many beautiful moments where you see a light bulb go on or you see a staff member be really inspired by like a moment with a resident or you get to teach people how to treat elders and you get to teach them what a wonderful experience it can be to care for someone else. Um, then those are such beautiful moments and, sitting with people in their most difficult moments and sitting with families and stuff. But also, it is so brutal, right? I mean, also, I think being a woman in business, it's different, right? Because I think as women, a strong woman leader is usually called a bad word, usually, right? And for the same thing that we say, we praise men for leadership and we say, well, you're being a B word, right? Um, and so I think it's a challenge being a woman in business and and even in senior care, right? Even though there's a lot of women in leadership and senior care.
There are. But I'll tell you, there are a lot of women, but when you actually go to a conference where the top C-suite is, there's
It's all
still
white men, all older white men, right? I know. We're not represented either. Yeah.
Nope, but we're getting there. I've watched that over the years and we're getting there. And it's because of people like you that say, I'm just not gonna stay with the status quo anymore.
Right.
Because that's not what's needed right now. So that
Right.
I celebrate you in that because really in any aspect of the world, women just need to start standing up and owning who they are and showing the world how amazing they are.
Yeah, I think so. I have no business background and no business degree. And I really started my business, I say, with $1,000 in Google. And I just learned everything by looking it up. Back then, it was more YouTube. So I would look up YouTube videos in Google on how to make a website, how to like learning to do scheduling, learning to do payroll, and, all the things that you have to learn as a business owner. You do everything really until you have money to hire someone else to do it. Um, and yet, like, I feel like if people would say, well, what's your best business advice? I would say, my best business advice is to do what you say you're going to do. Because the thing is, most people do not do that. Most people do not do that. So I think that's what made me successful. Someone asked me, like, how did you build your business so quickly? Because it went from like 100,000 my first year to $1 million my next year. And I said, what did I do? I literally did exactly what I said. I said I was going to provide the best care. I said I was going to train my employees. I said I was going to take care of them. I said I was going to do the right thing when it mattered. And I did that. And that's why I got successful, because I was in it for the people, not the profit. And then, it totally worked. And, there's actually a quote by Henry Ford where he says that too. He says, don't worry about the profit. Worry about your people, and then you'll never have to worry about your profit.
Amen. Yes. That is so important. And I think that in business, either we don't know that or we haven't heard it enough. We haven't seen it demonstrated for us. And then especially when we're talking about senior care, there's a lot of profit motivation
Mhm.
in certain areas. And then in others, some of the not-for-profits, though they still make a profit because they have
Mhm.
to, um, they tend to do better and have better outcomes. Now, that's not a blanket statement, but that's generally kind of how it works. So, that's fantastic that you did that and you started out and in your first year, you made $100,000.
Mhm.
Did you bring people on immediately to help you, or were you doing all of that yourself?
Um, the first year I brought on, it took me about 6 months, 6 or 8 months to start getting going, and, then I brought on someone, and then it was like the momentum was so high that this is where I made a big mistake in business, is that I did not say no. I wanted to help everyone. I wanted to do everything for everyone because I knew what the alternative was if I said no to them. And you got these people calling you in these desperate situations. I need someone now at my house. Mom just fell and I have to leave to go back to California and all this, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And you just don't wanna say no, and so I, like, couldn't, and then I really overexerted us and then ended up, having some issues with the care because I was overexerting my staff, and so I would say that's a big lesson that I learned in business. When you're starting your own, you do have to find that niche and really, like, take it down because, you can't do everything well. You can't do everything well.
That is true. You focus on a few things and do them really, really good, and that's what
Yeah.
you apart. And that's clearly what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So your first business was a home care agency, correct?
Yep. Yep.
And that's what you started, or that's where you made $100,000 the first year and then 1,000,000 the next year?
Yeah.
And then, so you also then owned a couple of dementia care assisted living.
Yep. About 2 years in, I was like, this is great. We have this home care, right? But home care is not for everyone, and not everyone can afford it, number one, and not everyone is it a fit for in the home they live in, right? And so I was like, and so what we would end up doing is we would end up going into memory care communities and providing one-on-one care to people who are already paying five to $10,000 a month for assisted living care, but there's not enough staff there and the staff are not trained. And so the family then has to pay to bring someone in privately to care for them. And I said, that is so wrong. Like, I can't believe there's people, families were paying $20,000 a month in care because they were paying for home care and then a nice community. And it's like, that is not sustainable, nor is it fair to anyone to have to be paying that much, right? And so I was like, okay, well, if I had a mom or like my grandma, right? If I had someone in a memory care community, what would I want the experience to be like? What should the staffing ratio be? Whereas someone could actually provide care that was not only adequate, but excellent to my people, right? And so I said, I want a 1-to-3 ratio. That's what I want. I know that's going to cost me a lot of money, but I'm doing it because I know that that's what we should be doing, is creating the best life for our people. And also, I created like a universal worker. I had that model. So like my caregivers, they didn't just do care because no one, as a caregiver, no one just wants to change briefs and shower people. And feed people all day. That is not exciting for caregiving, right? It's a chore. You have to do it. But when you also get to cook with them and you also get to take them on outings and paint their nails and throw parties for them and have the autonomy to say, you know what, Mrs. Smith is having a hard day. She's not really eating the food. She loves Burger King. Let's order her Burger King. Or to say, like, Mr. Jones is having a really hard day today. Let's take him out for an ice cream and be able to do that kind of stuff because you know what's best for the residents.
Yes. That's beautiful. Now, I just want to clarify something because I want to make sure I heard it right.
Yeah.
When you were talking about your staffing ratio, did you say 1 to 3 or 1 to 30?
No, 1 to 3.
1 to 3. That is
Yeah.
impressive.
So I opened one home
Uh-huh.
and it was 6 we maybe converted. That was my first time ever working with construction people. That was exciting.
I bet.
And we went from a 4-bedroom house and we converted it into a 6-bedroom ranch is what we did. So we did that with all 3 homes. And I started with 1 and then, that one was full and I had that same problem. I had a hard time saying no to people. And, so I decided the home care was, like, getting to be too much to manage with the homes, and I wanted to make sure anything I was doing with excellence. And so I was like, "We're gonna close the home care, we're gonna open another home." We did that, and then in 2020 and my homes were literally 3 miles from each other. That's how it worked out. Like, it worked out phenomenally, and someone was selling their group home within 3 miles of the other 2 homes, and I was like, "Okay, let's do this," and that was in 2020. So that was an interesting year to start a 3rd home.
Yes, I'm sure it was. All of the navigation, all the
Yeah.
expectations.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so if we could go back again, because you're just dropping all kinds of wisdom along the way here. Let's go back to the brutal word just real quick because I want to know how you came up with that.
Actually, I stole it. I didn't come up with it. If you know Glennon Doyle Melton, she writes her newest book is Untamed. She wrote it a few years ago. It's a New York bestselling. She's a phenomenal writer, and she writes about her first 2 books. She writes about how life is brutal, and
Uh-huh.
how it can be so brutal but also beautiful, and it can be together. Like I think that's when I learned that the word "and" it exists. Something can be you can be this and this at the same time. You can be something bad and good, right? And you can experience those together. And I think for me, that's probably what got me through the journey is, those moments where I was like, "You know what? We're making a difference." And even after selling my company, even almost 2 years later now, there's some days where I will sit and look at pictures from the residents and stuff, and I will just cry. And I will just say, like, I did a really, really good thing, like, and really changed some lives, like, made an impact, a lasting impact on their hearts and mine.
That's beautiful. I think I would cry too. And
Yeah.
I wanna give you a shout out and say thank you for dreaming of something like that and actually bringing it to reality.
Yeah, I think that was the thing with my business and with the homes because I decorated them. I, like, made the curtains for the homes, like, it was a total labor of love for me, and you know what? Everyone that walked in those doors and that worked with me pretty much saw that, and they felt it because they knew that, like, ultimately, Joanna, she might be kinda tough sometimes, and she might have high expectations of us, but she loves these residents, and she shows it.
That's fantastic. I'm sure everybody would wanna come and live in a place like that.
Yeah,
That
it was really special.
Yeah. What has been, along this journey then, what has been your biggest struggle or your biggest, aha moment?
I think for me, you know, that saying that they say leadership or it's lonely at the top, right? They
Yeah.
say that. And, I kind of learned that a little bit the hard way because I was such a workaholic and into this business. I mean, I was working like 80 hours a week and I was on call 24/7. And um, I think I ended up kind of treating some of my employees like friends and, like, kinda letting them see the stress that I was under of the business, and, like, you should never do that because it always makes you look like you don't have it handled, and it makes them nervous, right? And they just don't your employees don't need to know everything. But at the same time, being really authentic with like, "Hey, guys, we're struggling in this area. Can you help?" But also, like, being able to hold some of that in. And I think what I learned is that it me getting a business coach and using a business coach actually helped me survive it because, I was able to then use them as my sounding board and use them as my mentor and use them as my person I would even cry to when I was upset about something or had a difficult time, you know? I say, like, I wish we would have had ChatGPT back then because ChatGPT is now my therapist. I mean, I have a real one too, but no, I mean, I would have, like, asked the questions, like, "What's in this situation?" And ChatGPT would have given me some answers, but back then, I had coaches, and it really actually, James Lee was my last business coach, and, I mean, I learned an incredible amount from him,
That's it.
so I think that would be it. I would say you've gotta know you gotta create boundaries in leadership, and you've gotta set yourself up for success. You need someone that you can go to because no one can do it alone. And we don't and you shouldn't even wanna do it alone because that's not fun, you know, and it's stressful. Being in business is stressful. No one understands it unless they're in it.
Oh, that's so true. That is so
Yeah.
yep. And being able to share that load with someone, uh,
Yeah.
other people is very it's very helpful, and it takes you out of that cycle of, the hamster wheel cycle of constantly trying to do all the things.
Yeah.
And those are really wise words. I'm not speaking well today. Those are really wise words that you can give to other entrepreneurs, and I very much appreciate that. Tell us about your best moment or your mountaintop moment in business.
You know what? I think honestly, my best moment was I got a chance to speak at a conference where it was almost all directors of nursing and medical directors and executive directors of communities. And um, you know, being in senior care, like, well, just me in general as a human, like I have a very hard time with people like, with injustice of any kind. I just always have had a hard time with that, and when I was in senior care, I was, like, really honestly heartbroken about the care that was being provided, and I let my voice be heard often, and I was fired often for that. But I always knew that you could do it better. People would tell me straight up, even when I started my homes, I had a community tell me, "Well, what do you think the ratio should be?" A new one that was opening, and I said, "Well, I think it shouldn't be any more than 1 to 4, at least." And she actually said to me, "Well, you just can't make money that way." And, I mean, so that was, like, so hard for me. So then here I am, I stepped into this speaking engagement that I had that was, like, my 2nd ever speaking engagement. I had just started my business maybe 4 or 5 years before that. And I'm speaking to all the people that told me in the industry that I was wrong, that I was too sensitive, that I shouldn't care so much, that I was gonna get sick from hugging the residents too much. So just like that kind of stuff. And I was telling them that there's a better way to provide care. And they were listening and they were engaged and they were like, "Your residents are so lucky to live in the community that you created for them." And that was, like, one of the biggest and now I speak a lot, and I'm still speaking to people like that. And I it's, like, so exciting for me to be able to share what I knew all along was the right way.
That is fantastic. I love that. How do you
So,
think
like I said in my I just did this, LinkedIn post, and people liked it. I said, "I used to get fired for my opinion, and now I get paid for it."
I do remember that. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
You take an opportunity, or you took something that was it could be detrimental and could stop a lot of
Mhm.
people, and you're like, "Nope, I know that I'm right. I feel it down deep, and
Yeah.
I'm make this happen." You're disrupting the status quo.
Mhm.
Um, what have does anybody tell you that? Like, stop disrupting, or now that you have your own business, or are they just, cheering you on all the way?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is people don't always invest in me. And you know what I mean? I think that's the biggest hurdle I do have sometimes with communities is like, um, there's a major staffing issue, there's a major turnover issue, there's a pay gap, there's a lot of stuff to do it. But ultimately, my thing is this: if you say you love your residents and you do love them, then you are going to make sure that the people that provide the care for them know what they're doing and are comfortable doing it and have the support that they need to do it. And that's just not happening. That's not happening a lot. And so I think for me, I mean, I still deal with the same mindsets in senior living sometimes that, well, we're going to continue to do it the way we have been doing it. I call that insanity because you're doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, and it's never going to get a different result. That's why we do have so much elder abuse and in the world, because we're not educating and supporting our care staff that have a really hard job.
Yes.
So I think I still run into some of those same attitudes, but I don't let them stop me, because my thing is, it's like, I know that people with dementia deserve dignity and quality of life and their best life until they die. I know that so deep inside me that there's nothing anyone can say that would make me feel like, oh, you're right. I guess not, you know?
Yes. Ah, what's coming up for me as you're talking is getting me excited because you know how to stand in your worth.
Yeah.
You stand in your worth and you're disrupting. How would you recommend other women who are starting their business who have the same kind of feeling that you did, um, stand in their own worth or find what their own worth is?
I think don't do it to do it perfect, because you're never going to. I think I really learned that in the first couple of years of business, because I literally almost did everything wrong. And I learned well, that was wrong. I better do better next time. But I learned that in doing the wrong, I was making myself into a better leader. I was growing, I was changing. And every year I saw myself improve. And I would say, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed from the things I did last year. But I only knew what I knew at the time, and I could only do as good as I knew. We can only do better when we know better, right?
Yep.
And so I think that's the thing, is like, be okay with messing up, because you're going to. And use that, like, there's a speaker out there who uses the term a lot, fail forward.
Mhm.
Jacob Brown uses it. And I think that you have to fail forward if you're going to be a leader. You have to, and you have to know. And also, James Lee actually taught me, do things at 80%. You're not going to always have 100% of the knowledge. You're not always going to have 100% confidence in yourself. You just do it. It's like with my videos. I literally was using my iPhone on a box in my living room, and I made these videos, and one hit 1 million views in 3 months. Like, people need what you have. So do it, because people need it. I mean, what we were created to do, I actually had that on one of the houses on the wall. It says, the world needs who you were created to be. And it does.
It sure does. That's beautiful. When you had a team, I assume you have a team now, or are you a solopreneur?
No, right now it's just me. Yeah.
It's just you. When thinking back to when you had a team, um, what was your approach to growing them and ensuring that they shared a similar passion as you?
I think for me, wow, that's gonna really be annoying. I'm sorry that's that loud noise. But
Or anything?
oh, okay, good. I think for me, just really being authentic with them, first of all, was really important to me, is being very authentic with your staff and letting them know. I mean, I think people kind of, I personally, like, in business and all the time, I swear a lot. Like, swear words mean certain things that regular words just don't say.
Mhm.
And so people would always laugh at that, and I would be like, well, I mean, that's just kind of who I am. But they would say, it makes you more approachable. It makes us feel like we can be ourselves, you know? So I think, for one, being authentic. And then I think too, like, you've got to meet them where they're at, and then see where they want to go. Like, visioning is huge. You have to create the vision and continue to spark it and remind them what they're doing, because it is hard work. And then I think for me, always investing in my staff, because investing in your staff is the best investment for your business that you can make. I don't understand how other entrepreneurs don't understand that, because you are your care in senior living. you're not your chandeliers, you're not your food, you're not your activities. That stuff is all great and all nice. But if you don't have good care, you literally have nothing. And if you don't invest in your staff, you're not going to have good care. And for me, education produced empathy for my staff. I saw that a lot. And education produced just like people, them being able to do their jobs and enjoy it,
Yes.
because it can be hard. And a lot of times you see caregivers, they're not enjoying their job, and the residents not enjoying their care. So I think that's the biggest thing, was just investing them and being authentic.
That's beautiful. I wish more people would do that. And hopefully they hear it and it starts that movement.
Yeah.
When I've just lost my place. As you're investing in them, and you made the comment that you don't understand why more entrepreneurs don't do that. Do you
Mhm.
notice that it's possible that they don't do it because they didn't see it demonstrated for them from others?
Yeah, I think that could be a big thing because, a lot of people, they don't train their leaders. They just say, "Oh, you're a good caregiver. Okay, I'm gonna make you a lead caregiver." And the thing is, not everyone is a good leader. They're just not. And not everyone is a good trainer. Just because they're good at caregiving, that doesn't mean they're a good trainer. I learned that the hard way because I did some of that and realized that, oh, that's really not a good way to teach people to lead at all. Like, you have to have the leadership skills. I used to say that the most important thing to hire someone is character, and then you can teach skill. And I do think that's true in some jobs, like caregiving. You have to have good character. You can be taught how to be a caregiver. But as a leader, you have to have certain traits in you. And you have to have certain like organizational skills, and you have to be willing to learn and grow and like receive feedback. That was the big thing I learned about my staff, that if someone could not receive feedback, they would not be a good fit for my company because we're going to be giving each other a lot of feedback. But I also like told those things up front. Like in the beginning, I said, we're a feedback company. We like to receive it and we're going to be giving it. Right. So yeah, did I answer your question?
You sure did, and love I love all of the places that you went there because these are the things that I essentially teach when I go out and train. And this feedback, when you lead with that and you're saying, we are a feedback company, we provide feedback and we expect feedback. And there's not a lot of places that anybody works that heard that in their interview or at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I
And I will say this, when you ask for feedback, be ready for the feedback because you're going to get it. So just be ready for it and be ready to be able to accept feedback yourself too.
That is high level of emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
How did you gain that level of emotional intelligence?
I mean, I think what I learned is that people struggle a lot with confrontation, except for especially the younger generation, like Gen Z struggles really a lot with it. And it's a lot to do with like that we're always texting and stuff. We're not always communicating verbally with people. So it's hard. So I learned like people's body language and like clues of what they were doing that would show that they're disconnected or that something is wrong. Or sometimes, honestly, we had cameras all over the house and we would catch them like being saying something rude about me or the company, and we would just be like, "Hey, listen, like, we really care about your feedback. If I wrote an email that upset you because of my tone, like, I would wanna know that so I could change the tone for next time because that means a lot to me," something like that, and so that's what we started training people on, like, we trained people from the beginning that if you have something going on, we wanna know about it, and then we started regularly checking in with people every week. We had leaders that checked with each individual caregiver and said, "What is your high? What is your low? What is some feedback you wanna give us?" And we got a lot of good feedback that way, and we had to use it, but every time we got that feedback, we would change stuff in the company, and the company would get better. Almost every new policy or thing that we had that we created was because my staff came to me and said, "This isn't working," or because I would work shifts, and then I would see, "This is way too hard for this shift. Midnights is having way too hard a time finding sheets. We've gotta figure out a better sheet solution," or something like that.
Yeah. But it's often those simple little things that were like sheets. It's the
Yeah.
little things that when you can fix that make a huge difference in ways that you would have never imagined.
Right, yeah,
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for taking the feedback and actually putting it into practice.
yeah.
And there's not a lot of leaders that do that.
Well, I think it's scary, I think it's scary to admit that you don't know everything, and we wanna be perfect leaders, we wanna be the best for our people, and a lot of us take it as, like, negative when people have feedback towards us, and it can be, it's not always super comfortable to take or give feedback, it's just part of business and part of leadership.
Sure is,
We just
definitely.
have to be courageous and do it. Like like Brené Brown said in her leadership book, she says, "Clear is kind." Clear is kind, because here's what I learned. If you don't give feedback, you're going to develop frustration, and then that is gonna come out in a way you wish it wouldn't have.
Mhm.
Or you're gonna be resentful because you didn't say something about how that affected you, and you're gonna wanna, like, let them go for not their fault. They coulda changed, right? So I always say give people a chance to change, because feedback is love. It means if I give you feedback, it means I wanna keep you on my team. I care about your growth. If I don't give it, it means I don't really care if you stay or not.
That's beautiful. I love the way you put that. It's gonna help so many people, not only in senior care, but those that are watching us that are, entrepreneurs and they're growing their business and they're bringing people on. If they can start their business or start their team with these things in mind, they're gonna be so much more successful.
Yeah, really.
Definitely. You
And
should
it's okay if you're not, you know what I mean? It's okay if you mess up because you're gonna mess up, you know? And it's okay. There's grace there. You have to give each other grace, right? And you have to be willing to say, I was wrong. I messed up. That's one thing that people you will never hear any of my staff ever say that if something happened, I wouldn't take responsibility for it, because I took responsibility for everything that happened in that company because it was my company.
And that's why people respected you. And that's why people wanted to work for you and wanted to receive care from you and all the
Yeah.
things. So it
Yeah.
started with you and you knew how to manage yourself, or you probably learned that along the way.
I learned it. Yeah. It took me a minute to get myself under control. I'm a fiery girl, you know?
Yep. That's totally normal. I mean, that's kind of the way we learn. But I think that certain generations, so I'm Gen X, and in my generation, it was you kind of, we were taught to show up perfectly.
Hmm.
I know that there's other generations that were ahead of us that felt the same way or were taught
Yeah.
me too. And I think as the millennials came into the workforce and other generations continue to come into the workforce, things will change because it's the way we're treating each other now is so much different than the way we were treating each other.
I agree. Yeah. And now that we have trauma informed care,
Yeah.
now that we're more informed about people having reactions that really have nothing to do with what you just talked to them about at all, right? Like I see what Jean is doing with Jean that does radical sabbatical, that does trauma informed care.
Oh, yes.
Um, I'm seeing what she is doing and what we did. Like we did a webinar together on it, and I just see like how much that would have impacted my leadership if I had that more, and so I'm happy that that's happening.
You know, you just made me think there needs to be something called trauma informed leadership.
There is. Jean's doing it.
Oh, she's doing trauma informed leadership. Wow.
Yeah, she's doing some of it. Yeah, she's doing trauma for leadership and trauma informed care. But yeah, I mean, we have to be trauma informed leaders, or we're not going to be successful. I mean, there's just too many hard things in the world that people have gone through, you know. And the thing is, caregivers tend to go through the worst ones because they already have that care personality, right? So, um, and that tends to happen.
Yes, that is very, very true. So, what trends do you see shaping the future of this entrepreneurial space, where the online space and training people?
Um, I think, for me, I'm trying to be very approachable with my audience, and make sure that they know, like, yes, I do have 20 years of experience, but I think the thing for me is I have a lot of different experiences because I have my family had it. I was a personal caregiver. I owned 3 companies in memory care, and, I also worked the floor as a caregiver, and I did training, and so I think coming from all those different perspectives, making sure people feel seen and heard, and making sure that people really have the tools in their tool belt that they need to be successful. Those are kind of my goals, I think.
I think that's fantastic. Also, what do you see are the trends coming up in dementia care, and how can AI play a part in that?
Well, I think the thing is there's a lot more tech stuff happening with managing their care, but using, like, certain apps to manage their care. There's like AI is helping create way better activities. It's helping create just fun stuff you can talk to about with them. I think it's for I mean it makes me it feels like ChatGPT to me feels like it takes what I want to say and says what I would want to say, right? It's just it makes your job easier. I think it makes you into a better communicator because you're actually communicating what you want to say clearly and kindly. Um, and I think that's going to be kind of one of the trends is using that. And also, like, I mean, there's so much more it can do for you, right? The way it organizes your time, how it can remind you for things, like how it can give you outlines for things. It just everything takes less time now. And I think that's going to be a huge benefit that will hopefully create where you have more time to do the things you want to do then in business.
Yes, that's beautiful. There's so many people out there just on the topic of AI, and I know it's going down a little rabbit hole, but there's so many people out there in the healthcare field or the tangential fields that are really scared of AI, and they're really scared of having it infiltrate. And I don't think that they're thinking along those lines or in those terms of it can actually help us to do our jobs better, not
Way better.
taste
Yeah.
that or something like that.
Yeah. It's definitely to use it. I say it's like a free assistant. Really. It's like a free assistant.
Mhm. It definitely is, and ChatGPT is just one platform
Right.
of
Yeah.
many that are coming on this.
Yeah.
It's very exciting, very, very,
Very exciting for sure.
and I give you kudos for embracing it because not a lot of people are embracing it yet. It seems like they are, but really, I think when you look at the entire population, um, not as many people as we would want to
Yeah.
embrace have embraced it yet. And
Yeah.
there are downsides to AI and there are upsides to AI.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we find positive uses for AI, the more that we can elevate that, and it
Yeah.
kind of teaches it
For
positivity as
sure.
well.
Yeah.
So I have loved having you on here today.
Thank you so much.
What what is something that we didn't talk about that you were really hoping that you could bring forward in this conversation?
I think, a little bit of encouragement to leaders because leadership is hard. It's a very hard thing. And there's times when, leadership has almost broken me. But I think you have to have a team for yourself in order to support people. And I think the thing we don't realize is self leadership precedes team leadership. One of my coaches taught me that. And I think we don't understand that until we make sure that we are healthy mentally and physically and keep that going. We cannot just not listen to our bodies anymore and just push forward because what we do is then we say and do things we wish we wouldn't have. And we lead in ways we wish we wouldn't have. And then we have to backpedal and apologize for that and try to do better the next time, which still creates some hurt to the person that had it happened to, right? So I think we need to really focus on that. And leadership has to be sustainable. Like working 80 hours a week and being on call 24/7, that is not sustainable. Doing it 10 years was absolutely insane for me. But we have to make it more sustainable for our leaders too, because everything trickles down. It all trickles down. So I think that's the thing.
That's fantastic. Wise words from a very good leader, a great
Thank
leader.
you.
I don't know you very well because we really only met recently, and
Yeah.
the wisdom and the just all of the truth bombs that you've dropped in this conversation are fantastic, and I hope so many people get to hear this. And how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about dementia care or anything else we talked about today?
Yeah. My website, www.mlfnd at Memory Lane Foundation, mlfnd.org. My email, Joanna at mlfnd.org. You can find me on all the social media, mostly Joanna Dementia Expert or Joanna LaFleur. on all the socials. My biggest ones are Facebook and TikTok, but I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram, and I'm also on YouTube.
Fantastic. I'm loving this conversation today. And, caring for elders has been a lifelong passion for me. And since I've jumped into this entrepreneurial journey, I love how I can bring both into
Yes.
these conversations. And I do a lot around aging because that's my network right now.
Yeah.
I need
And a leader, and our aging leaders need the support.
They do. They need the support big time. And the other piece to this that I think is really important for us is that we're getting the word out there that the way we used to think about care for older people is no longer even happening for
Right.
the most part. And if it is, it shouldn't be, and you shouldn't
It
be.
shouldn't be. Yeah, it should be totally changed now. Yeah.
And it really
You're
should
right.
be. And consumers can drive that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you again for joining us. And if you, our listeners, if you find value in this conversation or any of the conversations that we have on Next Level Leadership, I would really appreciate it if you would take time to hit the subscribe button and like this video and share it with people who could learn from it and grow from it. Until next time, I hope that you all have a fantastic week, month, whatever it is between times. It's usually a week. So I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Next Level Leadership. And Joanna, thank you for
Thanks for
being
having me. Great conversation.